Okay. Thank you everyone for joining me. It looks like we got a great turnout today. And I apologize for the little late start. We had some unexpected technical difficulties, and thank you all for putting up with that and moving on over to our new link. Um, this is the second in our series of webinars. Anyone who's been around a while, we did the last one almost 2 years ago, when COVID-19 had everyone shut down. We talked about improving your PM process during your downtime. This webinar is a little bit shorter, I think. We got a runtime about 35 40 minutes. So it's a little bit shorter, but it's not less important. We're going to talk today about your equipment list. If you missed that first webinar, it is available on our YouTube channel. If you go to YouTube and you search Megamation, you'll find a playlist for a playlist of recorded webinars with the first version of this webinar and the original the first webinar we did back in 2020. Those are both available on our YouTube channel right now. And while you're there, you might as well hit the subscribe button so you can see when we have new training videos, demo videos, and new webinar recordings going up. We're going to be doing webinars quarterly, so about every 3 months you'll see one go up there. And if you're on this one, you'll get an invite to the next one as well. So what we're going to talk about today is making your equipment list work for you. So whenever I talk to a client, whether it's a new client who just purchased the system, or is coming from another system, or it's someone who's been with us for 10 years, anytime I'm talking about the equipment list, I always say the equipment list is the foundation of your system. It's the most important part. It's the first thing that you want to get right before you move on and start doing other things. And the reason I say that is because everything you do in the system comes back to your equipment list. Every work order you do, you're doing it against a piece of equipment. Every bit of labor that you charge, you're charging it to equipment. Every piece of inventory that you use, you're using it on a piece of equipment. And that equipment might be a building, it might be a room, it might be a computer, or it might be a conveyor belt. Anything that you're doing work orders against, you're putting in the system as equipment. So the important piece that we're going to touch on here first is the structure of that equipment. So we're going to talk about expanding your equipment hierarchy, finding ways to. I'm going to show you a couple of different ways to lay out your equipment hierarchy, different structures you can use to make it easy to use and easy to search. I'm going to talk to you about the bill of materials, and I'll talk to you about using the bill of materials, which some of you may be familiar with, to link parts to your equipment. And you can do that whether you're using the inventory module or not. I know some of you are probably using the inventory module and tracking all the parts in your parts room. Some of you might not be doing that. You might not be tracking the parts in your parts room, or you might be tracking them in a different system. But that doesn't mean you can't use the bill of materials to keep track of what parts get used on what machine. I'm going to show you a couple of features in the equipment module, in the equipment entry screen, that improve your work, that can improve interface to your work orders. Just some things that affect new work orders that are created. So I'm going to show you those. Again, they're features that have been around a while, so you may have seen you may be aware of them, or maybe you're not aware of them. Maybe you forgot about them, and you can start using them now. And then the last thing is I'm going to show you a new feature that's been added to the equipment module. It's the view related info button, and it's got lots of great information in it. It's a nice quick way to get to a lot of really important information. So we're going to talk about that right at the end. The first thing that we're going to talk about is the equipment hierarchy. So you're probably all familiar with what an equipment hierarchy what an equipment hierarchy is, but we're going to talk about it a little bit anyway, explain it a little bit. And why do you need an equipment hierarchy? So the first reason is searching. A clean equipment hierarchy makes it easier for users to find the assets, find the equipment that they need, especially someone who's maybe not completely familiar with your facility. They can use the equipment hierarchy and use it to drill down through layers of equipment to find what you're looking for. They might not know what the class is that you use, what the class setting is that you use for conveyors, but if they're standing at that conveyor, they know where they walked through the facility to get to it. So they could probably find it in your hierarchy if you have it laid out by item location. Or if you or they might be looking for a sprinkler head, and maybe they can't find it by the location, but maybe they can find it by the system if you have it laid out like that, where they can drill down through the fire safety system. So we'll take a look at those two options, or those two ways of laying out your hierarchy, and I'll show you why they might work for you. The next one is reporting. If you have a nice, well laid out hierarchy, it allows you to use things like hierarchical structure, hierarchical cost reporting, which lets you look at, say, the cost, the labor and material costs or the maintenance costs of a production line. So you could look at how much am I spending on, how much labor am I spending at on production line 1, and you can use the hierarchical cost reporting to do that if you have an equipment hierarchy that's laid out properly. And the last one is maintenance planning, and this is probably the simplest one that you don't really think about it until you're planning out those shutdowns, or you're planning out the you're planning out the weekend's work. Is assets that share the same location, maybe the same power source or same water source, or you can plan the service on all of those assets at once, so you're only having to shut down the power once, or only having to turn off the water once, and you can find that using your equipment hierarchy if you have it laid out that way. So it makes the maintenance planning a little bit easier, especially at times like shutdowns or when you're doing your maintenance during downtime on weekends or what have you. So the equipment hierarchy is made up of a couple of different pieces, and I've got 3 layers in here. First one being buildings. So this is your facility, or the buildings that make up your facility. If you're in a facility where you have multiple buildings, you can have multiple buildings in your hierarchy, and they can all be at the same level, or they can be at multiple levels, where you have a level for your facility as a whole, and then you can lay out each building within your facility, and then the equipment below that. The next one I put is rooms. So the system has the ability to enter rooms, though I'm thinking that most of you in this session are not going to have rooms in your hierarchy. You're not going to have rooms in your facility layout. You can, but your facility is probably not broken down by rooms. It's probably broken down by things like production line or department. And you can use rooms. You can set up a production line as a room, which is fine. It allows you to put that level in the hierarchy. Or you can do what I mentioned here in the next line, where you create a piece of equipment for the department or for the line. So you can create a piece of equipment called line 1, and that's your production line 1. So then your hierarchy can be laid out where you have a building at the top. Then the next level of your hierarchy is production lines 1 through 5. And then the next level under those production lines, you've got the individual machines. You have your stamping machine, or your conveyor, and your gluer, your cutter, whatever equipment you have within your production lines. And when you have them set up like that, then you can get costing on, as I mentioned earlier, on that line, because you have that line set up as a piece of equipment. So now you can look at that line and all of its children. So the two ways, and I touched on this earlier, but these are the two ways that I'll talk about today to create a hierarchy. And there's probably a million right ways to create a hierarchy, right? So these are not the only ways to do it, but these are the most common ways I've seen, and the ways that I've seen people have the most success. So the first one is by asset location, which is what I was just mentioning, where you have your building, maybe you have rooms under that, but under your building you've got things like production line and then the equipment that makes up that production line, and you can even break it up below your production line. You can, if you have, you can do equipment groups under the production line and then the individual equipment under that. You can go as granular as you want, depending on how you want to be able to report on it. The next one is by system. So I look at this one this way mostly when I'm looking at laying out a facility, rather than not so much your production lines, but your facility as a whole, because you might have things like the one I've got here is fire suppression, and that's that's the example we're going to use later. But it's your fire system. You might not want to lay it out that it's, the sprinkler above line 1 and the fire extinguisher that's in Bob's office. You might want to lay it out as a system where you create a hierarchy for that system, for that sprinkler system, or for your electrical layout, or just different pieces of your facility like that. So those are the two ways that I generally see it laid out, and the two ways that I see most people see people have the most success with it. I say there's probably a million right ways to do it. There's also a few wrong ways to do it. Not having a hierarchy at all makes things is probably the most difficult way for you to do it when you want to move forward. So the first example we're going to look at is by asset location. So in my example here, we've got a plant. Here's our building, our food production plant. Within our food production plant, we have different lines. We have our tanks and kettles. We have our freezer area, our sauce division. So this is our facility, and these are departments within that facility. The way this is all created, just on a from a trainer's perspective, the way this is all created is this plant is set up as a building. Then when the sauce division is created as a piece of equipment, we're just filling in the parent field with plant. Then when we drill down in here, we've got in the sauce division, now we've got production lines. Right? And again, the line, or number 240 here, the parent of that is sauce, and then the parent of sauce is plant. So we're creating our hierarchy this way to get ourselves down to the granular piece of equipment. So we've got our sauce plant, we've got the packaging equipment, and then here's the individual machines that make up that packaging equipment, or that make up that packaging equipment list. And this is it. So we're creating this, and now if I'm standing at that bottle heater and I have a problem with it, well, I know where I'm at because I'm maybe a production worker, so I can go into my hierarchy and I can drill down and I can find my my glass dumper just by drilling down through the hierarchy. I can also, as an admin, I can run a report. I can run the hierarchical costing report, and I can find what the sauce division is costing us for what the sauce division is costing us for maintenance, because I can run it just with the top, with sauce being the top level, or what the packaging equipment is costing us. I can start my report from there. So with a nice, neatly laid out hierarchy like this, I can find all that information. The next way that I want to talk about is by system. Now, when I get into my screenshots here, we've got a fire safety system. I've got it labeled as Megamation University. Because this is one of the few things that's kind of the same no matter where we're at, whether we're in a school or a production facility or a hospital or wherever we're at. Fire systems are fire systems, right? We've got, so when we go when I'm looking at my facility here, I've got my fire system. The parent of that is my building, and then as I get down, I've got my fire alarm and my sprinkler. And I can drill down and I find all my sprinkler head units in there. So this works best for, not necessarily for the guy who's working in production and is putting in a work order, but this works really well for reporting, because I can report here and I can say how much am I spending on how much am I spending on my sprinkler system, and I can use my report to find my hierarchical structure report to find that. I could even look at how many work orders that I have just on sprinkler head units, and it'll let me find that as well. So doing it this way works very well for reporting, to help us get the information that we need. So as far as the equipment hierarchy goes, does anyone have any questions about that? Has anyone, or really any comments? Has anyone tried any of this, any of these hierarchical types and run into any issues, or you have any comments on what you've found as the best practices? All right. All right. So that was the first part, was the equipment hierarchy. When one question that came up the last time we talked about this, and so I just want to mention it now. Why the Okay, so Chris, you say not drilling down too far. Yeah, that's one thing, and I mentioned getting as granular as you want to be. From an admin point, when you're setting it up, you want to say, you know what, I want to know exactly. I want to be able to pinpoint what part of the machine it is. But then you have to take into account that whoever's going to put in the work orders, or the guys who are working on the work orders, you don't want them to have. You want to make sure that they're going to go far enough that you're getting all the costs correctly, and everything is getting allocated. All the work orders are getting allocated to the right place. So yeah, you want to make sure that you've got it granular enough for reporting, but not too far that people are going to give up before they get to the end of the line. All right. Oh yes, the one thing that a question that was asked last time, someone mentioned to me about the equipment hierarchy when you're submitting work orders, and they said, well, we have our people submitting their work orders through our web work order entry page, and they don't have the ability to go through a hierarchy. Well, that's a setting that we can change for you. So if that's the case and you think it would be easier for your production staff or whoever's submitting work orders to drill through a hierarchy to submit their work order, then you can, by all means, give us a call our support line. They'll talk to your account, or they'll get you in touch with your account manager, and we can get that added onto your web work order entry page or even your mobile page. So the hierarchy, just because it's not on there now, doesn't mean we can't add it on. All right. The next thing I want to talk about is the bill of materials. So the bill of materials on your equipment, the bill of materials on your equipment is the list of parts that can be used to repair that equipment. So it's the list of parts and materials used to work on that equipment. So it might be the oil and filter you need for your oil change, or it might be bearings, or it may be one-off parts that need to be made for it. And all of that stuff can be listed. It can be inventory parts if you're using the inventory module, which is great. It can also be non-inventory parts, and I'm going to show you how to do that. When you create the bill of materials, and this is the kind of the biggest point of it, is when you have the reason you set up your bill of materials is so that when you're creating a PM, or you are planning a work order or adding parts to a work order, when you send somebody out to work on a machine, they can look up the bill of materials and they know what parts they're looking for. They're not just looking for a bearing in a list of 10,000 bearings. There's a link there that they know what bearings this machine uses. So let's take a look over here on our demo system. I'm going to go to the equipment module, and I'm going to bring up a piece of equipment here that has a bill of materials filled out. So in this bill of materials, we have a lot of parts. Each one has a warehouse, so I know it's an inventory part. I can view any of these parts. I can view any of these parts by going to the inventory detail screen and searching for that part or searching by equipment number, because it's linked. The equipment number is linked to the part, just like the part is linked to the equipment number. We have over here the quantity. How many of these parts are used on this particular piece of equipment? So we know right away everything that can be used. Now, let's say there's a one-off part that needs to be actually made for this machine, or a part that you don't keep in inventory. Well, we can go here, and in our part number, we can put something that's not an actual part number. The warehouse will show as NI, so it's a non-inventory part. And now we can take this. Now we can. What am I trying to say? Now we can, in the description, we can describe what exactly this is. Right? So we can describe exactly what it is. We might even say the supplier's part number for it. We might even put the supplier's part number for it, so that we can call the supplier and we can order it if it's something it's something that we can order. So, and I added this to a list of parts that are already in inventory. But if you're not using the inventory module at all, and I'm fairly certain quite a few of you are not using the inventory module, that's fine. You can go into your equipment and you can add parts just like this. That way you can still look up this equipment entry and find what bolts you need and what the shaft is needed for that pump, and all of that information is still stored here in one spot, so that you can get to it easy. Your maintenance techs, when they're working on the equipment, they can get to it easy. They can even view all of this. They'd be able to see this stuff right from their mobile device. So it just puts everything kind of at your fingertips. You've got it all right there for you to work on, or for you to have when you need to work on it. So that's our bill of materials. The big takeaway, the big thing that I wanted to point out was just making sure that you can use that bill of materials even if you're not working on even if you're not working with the inventory module, you can still use that bill of materials. The next thing is some features in the system that are there to improve your work orders. Okay, so these are pieces of the equipment entry screen that you may or may not be using, but if you use them, can help make your work orders just a little bit easier to deal with, and a little bit maybe a little more user friendly. So the first one is right here, is the warranty expiration date. So we've got a piece of equipment here, our pump that was purchased in 2020 on July 15th. The warranty expiration is July 15th of 2022. So now when we look at this, when we create a work order for this pump, we're going to get a notification. It's going to say, hey, this pump is still under warranty. So if we have to contact the manufacturer before we work on it, we can do that. We know right away. When the other thing is the hazardous materials section. So this hazardous materials section allows you to link this equipment to the hazardous materials module. Okay, and you can use the hazardous materials module, and if you're interested in the hazardous materials module, you can use it for tracking the existence of hazardous materials, but also the disposal of hazardous materials and the storage of hazardous materials. That can all be done with our hazardous materials module. And I'm not going to get too deep into it right now. I mostly just want to talk about how it affects the equipment entry and the work orders. But if you're interested in learning more about that, you can give us a call our support line, and they'll set you up with a training session, and we'll sit down and we'll talk about it for an hour, and I'll show you exactly how the hazardous material module works. But what we're using it for here is to link some materials to this equipment. So with these materials linked to this equipment, if we create a work order for this equipment number P1, it's going to highlight that equipment. It's going to highlight the equipment on the work order in red. So it's going to notify us that, hey, there's hazardous materials present on this equipment. You need to make sure that they're present. And then your people know that they need to have their proper PPE, or they need to have their disposal information set up. Let me show you that right back here on our demo system. So we're going to go to our home screen, and we're going to create a new work order. So I'm going to go under the maintenance module, and I'm going to go to work request entry because it's an easy screen to use. And in my equipment, I could search, and I can search using my hierarchical search because I have a nice clean hierarchy. Or I can just type in my equipment number. And look at that. As soon as I put it in, it tells me this unit is under warranty. Are you sure you want to proceed? If it's under warranty, and I know, okay, well, I better call my manufacturer, and then I would hit no, and I don't have to create this work order. I just call my manufacturer, but I can always hit yes and continue past it. And now I can create my work order. And now that I'm now that I'm creating this now that I'm creating this work order, you notice my equipment number is now highlighted in red. And it doesn't just highlight it in red, it's giving us a message right here. Red background denotes equipment or location associated with hazardous materials. So if you associate hazardous materials to this equipment or equipment that's above it in the hierarchy, it will let you know that there's hazardous materials present. So now we know, and now we can bring our PPE with us. So those are just a couple of things, a couple of small additions to your equipment module, to your equipment entry screen, your warranty expiration date, your hazardous materials, that when you have them filled out on your equipment entry screen, now they make your work orders a little bit more interactive. They give you a little bit more information there. Okay, so that's what I wanted to show you. What I wanted to show you there with that. I'm going to show you, and I'm really excited about this because I think it's the first real new addition to the equipment entry screen in the 14 years that I've been with this company. The equipment is kind of, as I said, it's the foundation of your system. So it's the first thing you want to perfect when you're setting up your system. It's also the first thing we perfected when we were creating our direct line software. So there's not a lot of new things that get added to it. But this one I thought is a really nice feature. It's the view related info button, and what it does is it gives you fast access to information that you might want if you're looking up a piece of equipment. It shows you any existing PM entries. It can show you any existing work order history. And the biggest change it allows you to make is it allows you to update the bill of materials from existing work orders. I'm going to show you what I mean. So if we're looking at our equipment here, and I'm going to close this work order out of the way so our screen's nice and clean. On our equipment here, our P1 or centrifugal pumping system, pump number 1, we have a view related info button right here. When we click on that, just like that, it shows us our monthly, weekly, annual, and quarterly pump inspections. We can see there's 4 PMs. Here's the PM numbers. Here's the titles, our frequencies, when they were last done, when they're next due. So we've got all that information right there at our fingertips. We know exactly when the next PM is coming due. Hey, look at that. We have a weekly pump inspection due next week. If I want to take a look at one of these, I can hit the View PM Entries button over on the side. Here's my PM entries. Let's take a look at that weekly, see what's involved. Here's our weekly pump inspection. We can see it's got a lot of pumps on it. What do we have for a detailed work description? And line scheduling details. Of course, we can see we've got a nice checklist on here. And we can see how many people are required. It's going to be one person. It's going to take them 2 hours to do this inspection. So we've got all of that information right there at our fingertips, all right from the equipment entry screen. What else can we see from here? Work orders. Here's all the work orders that have ever been done on this piece of equipment. Do we have any open ones? Let's sort by status. Hey, look at that. We've got 5 open work orders for this equipment. I highlighted them all. We've got 3 PMs and 2 repairs. I can hit OK, and then it's going to bring them all up in my work processing screen. So I can access the open work orders very quickly like that. I can also, from those work orders, now I can see everything that's been done. So that means that I can go through and I can find any repairs that have been done, any failures that have happened in the past. All of that is right here on this equipment history list right here. Now, I mentioned updating the bill of materials. Right now we're on the PM info tab. There's a BOM update tab right here. So I can go to this BOM update. Here's my bill of materials right here. I can come in and I can add parts to it and go through my parts list, and I can find find a bearing and I add my bearing to it that way. Or I can hit view parts history. Now I've got a history of all the parts that have ever been used on this pump. So I'm going to scroll through here, and I might take anything that's used on a regular basis. Look at this kit number 3 here. That looks like that's been put on this pump many times. So let's select that one and let's add that to the bill of materials. You see it added it in here in the back. I might want to add this lube as well. So now I've added a couple of things to my bill of materials just like that. Now I can save that. I can close out of this screen, and when I go to the bill of materials, now I've got those parts here. I've got a blank line I can delete, but I've got those parts added right here to my bill of materials. And they even added with the quantities that were used. So it's a very quick way to update your bill of materials. And I hear quite often people saying, well, I'd like to use the bill of materials, but is there a way I can find out what parts were used previously on this machine? Well, yes, now there is. We can get that full equipment inventory history right from there. One thing I will mention is this is just inventory parts. This is not going to be anything that was added as a non-inventory part. So it is just allowing you to add inventory parts, but it does let you go through that history and add those all in. And once they're added to the bill of materials here, then this equipment is added to the inventory related equipment. So it does work both ways. If you add it on here, it is adding it on both screens. All right. So that's our new feature, our view related info button. Like I said, I'm very excited about it because we did add something new to equipment, and because it does have a lot of useful information and a lot of useful functionality. All right, let's see what questions we have. Okay, so parts description, is it searchable? Searching descriptions is a tough one, because descriptions are always just kind of open text fields, so they're not really indexed, and searching descriptions requires a lot of hoping that everybody spelled things the same. So searching parts descriptions can be a little bit difficult, but there are ways to do it using the query by form, the QBF searches. If searching those part descriptions is something that you really want to be able to do, that you really feel like you need to be able to do, you can call our support line and ask them about the QBF function. And I think we have some training of videos on that as well on our YouTube channel if you'd prefer to check those out yourself. But definitely, if you want to be able to search part descriptions, call our support line and ask them about the QBF. It's query by form, and they'll be able to help you with that search. All right. Okay. So the related info function, when you get your upgrade to the latest version, you will have that. But but you don't necessarily need to be upgraded to the latest version to get that functionality. We can just add it into your system. You can send an email to support, because your account manager will have to do it. Sorry, I got confused there with what I was saying. So your account manager does have to add that in, because there's a little bit of programming that's involved with it. But I did, I added it to the webinar, I did ask how easy is it to put in, and they said it's not that hard. We can add it with an just by adding, they can add just that functionality into the system without having to wait for a full upgrade. So you can send an email to Matt. He just put his email address there in the chat, or you can email the support line, email support@megamation.com, and we'll get in touch with your account manager and let them know that you'd like to have that view related info button, and we'll get that added into your system. Yeah, Mitchell, if you're not seeing it, then we'll have to then contact the support line, and we'll see if we can get that put into your system. Yeah. All right. I'm glad that people are as excited about that feature as I am. It validates my excitement. But yeah, if you guys just reach out, and we'll get that added in. Are there any other questions? Okay. So our webinar series, we're going to continue it. Our webinar series is going to continue. We are planning to do them about every 3 months. We were a little late on this one, so you'll probably see an invite going out about 2 months from now for the next one. If you have any suggestions, any particular things you'd like to get in more information about, you'd like to see a webinar on, feel free to reach out to Matt White or myself or our support line with suggestions, and we'll see if we can get it into our webinar series. The recording of this webinar and our previous webinar, as I mentioned, is on our YouTube channel. If you go to YouTube, and if you go to YouTube, just search Megamation, you'll see us there. Subscribe while you're there. Check out the demo videos and the training videos and recordings of our webinars. All right. Thank you all very much for joining. I really appreciate the turnout, and I appreciate your patience with our technical difficulties. I hope you learned something, and I hope you learned something new, and I look forward to hearing from you all again soon. Thank you all very much.